All right, we're gonna do our initial thoughts after probably what 2, 3.5 hours of gameplay.
Yeah,
Almost three and a
close
half.
to
Yeah.
three. Close to three, yeah.
Almost
Oh
three and a
yeah. I
half
guess we
hours
took the first 20 minutes to get set up.
Yeah.
is what it is. So like 3 hours of gameplay. So obviously not our final thoughts, but just our initial thoughts, kind of off our early play. I guess I can kind of lead it off here. I think the gameplay itself is pretty fun. However, I think the game feels fairly shallow in most regards. Not a lot of variety in terms of uh people that you face. The
Mm-hmm.
skill trees seem largely unimportant because the game just feels fairly easy. Like I don't there's very few times there where it felt like things were in real danger, and we're obviously playing on what is considered the normal difficulty level, so it doesn't really feel normal. It feels like we were playing kind of on easy mode for the most part. I mean, I was just kind of mostly freewheeling around sniping guys. The gunplay, especially for Arcane, who is not a long time like FPS studio, it actually feels really crisp overall. I think the gameplay is the highlight. The story is kind of there. I mean, it's there. You move forward and kind of do the thing. I mean, it feels to me, I think the best apt kind of comparison is a Far Cry game. The gameplay is a lot of fun. You can open world and do a lot of different missions, but ultimately, it's not like a super in depth story that you're attentively trying to figure out what's going on as the game goes on. It's more just like a fun game to play. And then those cutscenes, I don't know. It's
Mm.
they took a move with it, going with the like they're I don't even know, like moving images, but like not actually video that's got sound over them. I don't really love it. It doesn't portray a story very well, and I think it's kind of the problem with being engrossed by the story. It doesn't really feel like we're getting much from that part of it, if that makes sense.
No, I agree with that point.
But overall, it's still a ton of fun. Like just going around shooting the bad guys, doing the missions. I just don't know that if you don't already enjoy like kind of arcadey FPS gameplay, that you're gonna find a whole lot in the game to be latching on to.
That's it. Is it my turn?
Yeah,
Yeah.
go for it.
Um, I am of a similar mindset to what Austin was saying. I think if I say the gameplay does feel very solid, I think the gunplay, you know, I think back to, I haven't finished it. I've played maybe about a third of the first Dishonored, and it punishes you if you're openly like shooting people all the time. But like I even noticed then that like it felt good. That's just kind of carried over throughout all of Arcane's. And I forget which ones um, which Arcane studios did which games, but something that's always carried through is the gameplay has always felt good, and
Same.
that's very like relevant here. I think when we were fighting and shooting at stuff, it felt good. Um, I think it could do a little bit more to encourage us to use our abilities a little bit. Like I think
Yeah, it feels too easy for it. You don't really have
Mm-hmm.
to think about
right, and I think my character was the exception because like I would use the elevator all the time strictly so I could get somewhere a little easier.
that.
Um, and I was playing as Leia, the telekinetic. She can make an elevator appear that gives you a little bit of a height advantage, and you can buff your allies with that, or you could, just use it as a boost. So, um, yeah, we're only a couple hours in, so I really don't know what build variety is going to look like just yet. That being said, I don't know if it'll matter because the world felt a little empty, if you ask me. I think
Yeah,
we were about maybe an hour and a half in, and John, you mentioned that, you know, wasn't really anyone to shoot. We were just kind of running around from
Mm-hmm.
objective to objective. And that kind of bums me out because I think that when we're actually like in the heat of combat, it feels really good. We're just not in it as often as I'd like to. Um, and yeah, I agree on the story. I think it's pretty shallow. The concept's interesting. I love the art design and art direction of all of it. I think the vampire aesthetic with like some of like the '80s pulpy horror kind of vibe going on, while also being mixed with like modern sensibilities is a cool twist. I kind of like that for the art direction.
Hmm.
Location seems neat, but like I said, it's like I don't feel encouraged to explore if there's nothing to necessarily do, and if there is, make it more abundantly clear that there is something to do there.
And it doesn't feel like the notes and story pieces, like obviously like all these
Mm,
kinds of open world games where there's all the things that you can read. I
right?
don't feel any real desire to dig deeper
No.
into the story. Like it's not like I'm playing Mass Effect where like I want
Hmm.
to see every little piece of the story. It doesn't feel like I'm pulled in enough to really care about reading that stuff.
Right. And you go to just about any other arcane game and like Dishonored, all the Dishonored games have notes, I think, right? I
Yeah.
know Deathloop does for sure, and that, I'm much more interested in those worlds than this one because it's like, vampires, and here it's like almost like Last of Us vibes, where it's like these people are writing notes right before the vampires came and got them, kind of like with Last of Us, where you see like,
Sure.
and honestly, it's better in Last of Us because there's a little bit more heart going on there, but it's, I don't know, I think the vibe I got about, halfway through this was like, if I wasn't playing with friends, I don't think I'd stick with this for very long.
Mm.
Which kind of bums me out because I do really like Arcane. I think it does feel really good when we're in the heat of the moment, but like there's just not enough happening at any given moment to keep my interest.
Yeah.
Right around the time when Star Wars Jedi Survivor is out and Tears of the Kingdom is a week out,
Hmm.
so I'll
And
keep with it because I like playing with friends, and if someone would be like, hey, you want to go grind out, see if we can't like maximize our builds or something on Redfall, I'd be like, yeah, sure, why not? That sounds fun. But I wouldn't seek it out on my own. I don't think personally.
yeah. And I think one of the things that had they done more with it from the boss type people that we faced so far, it
Hmm.
didn't feel like it was unique, like a unique fight or like harder gameplay or anything like that. Like you could break up what is good gameplay with like, kind of like more towards like a Borderlands level boss where it's like they have a unique uh like characterization and there's a little bit more to them rather
Hmm.
than just like a vampire that's named. I think that would have added a little bit more to that where it's like, okay, I've
Yeah.
reached a good point. After I've done some story, you get to a point where you fight a big boss. And I know obviously there's going to be ones that we fight the actual like god vampires or whatever they want to call them. So we'll see when we get to that if that kind of lives up to that.
Mm.
But if we're 3 hours in and haven't even seen one, they're probably not that common uh, to the game because I don't think it's like an 80-hour game. So like
No.
I don't think there's going to be that many of them to kind of build on the content and get to a point where it's like, okay, now this is a really interesting fight against a character that has a different kind of look or feel or kind of gameplay loop rather than just the shoot the humans, then there's vampires, and then you shoot the vampires.
Hmm.
But
So
I do
you
like the
do have
classes.
definitely some valid concerns. The world is a little empty. Like I was shocked at how few enemies there are, and just such the lack of variety. Like there's the cultists that shoot at you, and there's the vampires, and then there's
Mhm.
stronger vampires. But there was nothing in the wild that could fuck you up. Like you're not. I wasn't expecting necessarily wolves, but you're not going to come across a wolf or a bear that you just have to fight now. There's no kind of just like chaos enemies aside from those red fog machines. But all in all, I'm having a blast. I've never been able to navigate open world, and it's nice having some guides because even now I'm still struggling to just figure out what's happening or where we're going. But I love the game. The combat is a little easy, and that's coming from the guy who's not very good at it. Uh, the fights are over in a few seconds. It's much slower paced with really shorter combat than I was expecting. But all in all, like Patrick said, some guys want to hop online, play Redfall. I'm down. This is a fun time. But
Yeah.
this, like you guys said, story shallow, game's a little hollow. Definitely enjoyable gameplay though. There's
I
just
never
not
I
much
definitely
behind
couldn't
it.
tell you a single character's name. Like our characters, like the class characters or the story characters. They're
No,
people.
yeah,
They have said a couple of lines,
You know,
but
one thing
I
I do
couldn't
want to
remember a
add,
single one.
uh, Dead Rising 2 specifically.
yeah.
Uh, Fun game, love that game. The beginning of the game, I remember playing as a kid, couldn't do. I thought it was too hard. Then I developed any amount of skill and could play the beginning of Dead Rising easily. And about halfway through the game, I was really starting to complain, like, man, it's gotten too easy. You just go around the zombies. And then suddenly, boom, there's more zombies and they're super zombies now. So I'm willing to give this game time to, like,
Yeah.
maybe they
Yeah.
realize we're causing shit, so then they start sending in everything. I'll
Well, and
give
I
them a
Oh,
definitely
chance
think
to like up the difficulty.
regardless of if it were this for another 8 hours, it's still fun to play, and I'll still
Yeah,
want to play through the
hmm
campaign
yeah.
and
There's
see it to
not a
the
bad
end.
time to be had.
I think the classes are fun. I mean, I picked the sniper class, which is kind of already up my alley. Like I love first person shooting sniping, so that instantly made is like a fun gameplay loop for me. But the class itself is decently fun. They each have a little bit of unique things, although like we were saying, they don't really you're not really challenged to use them in any unique kind of way. But they're fun characters to play. Gameplay is fun. Hopefully, they continue to build on that into something a little bit more. Maybe we try bumping the difficulty next time, see if that
I'm
does
thinking,
anything.
yeah, maybe we could up it.
yeah,
Just just see, and then hopefully the gameplay builds up a little bit on that too. But regardless, I'm gonna have fun at least playing through the campaign and
Yeah,
then see where it goes from there.
yeah.
I don't think it's
Agreed.
anything mind blowing, but it's a good time.
Yeah, I think where I come from too is just like as a I don't want to say a lifelong Xbox fan because that's not the case, but like they acquired Bethesda and they announced the surprise game at E3 a couple of years ago, and then they had to delay it a year, and it's like, well, it better be good because we have a drought of Xbox games, and they put this out, and it's like, oh, okay, well, Starfield's later this year, but maybe that doesn't hit either.
Yeah, I
But
mean that's gonna be a big swing, so we'll see what
it
happens.
has to be, it has to hit, and this one I don't think hits as high as I want it to, but at the end of the day, I'm still having a good time. I'd still like
Yeah,
whenever we finish the game, maybe we decide to do a little bit of end game farming, maybe not, maybe we just move on, and I honestly wouldn't be upset about either.
if to me the my initial impression so far is this is a very solid 7.5 out of 10 level game. Like
Hmm.
good, but not truly great. Fun time to play through and then put aside to go to something else.
Yep. And
Another aspect I wasn't a huge fan of was the lack of shopping ability. Like you can get health, ammo, and guns.
It doesn't feel very useful. Like you
no,
sell your
No,
gold,
like
you get all of this
I found
money
all
and
of my
then do
best
literally
guns
nothing
for
with it.
free. Like there's no
Right.
yeah,
point to the money. I don't need it for any kind of shield or gear. Like I'm not gonna buy these crap guns, and I don't know. It felt irrelevant.
It does seem like stuff like that. There's some aspects of it. They're like, well, we have to have this in the game,
Yeah,
but they didn't necessarily flesh it out or build it in a way that it's actually necessary.
right. Like
Like
I'll
even
just
if
keep
like,
selling everything, or
right,
I
like in a
won't. It doesn't
Borderlands
matter.
shop, right? Like you go to one of the machines, most of the gear is irrelevant, but like you always have that limited time item
Mm-hmm.
that is always a higher level item so that you have a reason to look into the shop.
Yep.
You have a reason to
hmm
look and actually check every time. And there's nothing like that in the Firehouse shop
Nope.
or anywhere else that we've been to be like, I need to actually look at this. And you can just salvage the gear right out of your
Right.
backpack. So
Like
you
you don't
don't
even
even have
need
to
to
sell
head
it.
there.
Yeah,
yeah,
But yeah, no. Like Austin said, 7.5 out of 10. It's
yeah,
not
that's what
perfect, but it's a fun time.
Agreed.
Hmm. Yeah, that's probably where I'm at about two, and we're only 3 hours in, so that could go any direction from there. But
Yeah, they've
Yeah.
definitely
I,
got time to
yeah,
improve. I just don't know how they would fix all of that. They could definitely up the
no,
difficulty by the end easily, though.
So long
no,
as the gameplay continues to be good, that's all that really matters to me in this game. I
I'd
mean,
like to
truthfully,
up
yeah,
combat a little more. I want to not run for 10 minutes and then fight for 5 seconds.
for sure. I just mean like there should like a continual increase in difficulty and
Yeah,
gunplay. Like that's all I really am looking out of this game. Kind of having now played it for a couple of hours, I know what to expect, and I'm just looking for a continual in uptick in the uh, gameplay, and I'll be happy.
hmm.
that's that's all I'm asking for.
Yep. All right. Well, those are our initial thoughts after our 3 hours or so of gameplay. So anyone who looking to get into the game, that's kind of what to
Cool.
expect
Hmm.
early on from us, kind of our opinions. Other than that, hopefully you guys enjoy the game as well. Go ahead and give us a subscribe. We'll have our gameplay out tomorrow. It'll be our first episode, and you'll see that every day until we kind of get through the campaign here. Other than that, have a good one.
Adios.